Flight Officer Chuck Yeager's P-51 Mustang screams over Bremen at 25,000 feet. October 12, 1944. Below him, a crippled B-17 bomber trails smoke, struggling to stay airborne. Its crew has nursed the damaged aircraft 300 miles from the target, almost home, almost safe. Then Yeager sees them. 5 Messerschmitt Bf-109s diving toward the helpless bomber like sharks sensing blood. The B-17's gunners are out of ammunition. The pilot can't maneuver without tearing the aircraft apart. Those 5 German fighters are going to kill 7 American airmen, and there's nothing the bomber crew can do about it. Yeager doesn't hesitate. He rolls inverted and dives after them alone. His wingman is low on fuel, heading home. The rest of his squadron is miles away. It's just Yeager versus 5 of Germany's best pilots in the fastest, most maneuverable fighters the Luftwaffe has. What happens in the next 12 minutes will make Chuck Yeager one of only a handful of American pilots to achieve ace in a day status, shooting down 5 enemy aircraft in a single mission. By the time he lands back at base, he'll have saved that B-17 crew, destroyed an entire German fighter squadron, and proven that a former aircraft mechanic from West Virginia could outfight anyone the Luftwaffe put in the sky. This is the story of how a kid who barely graduated high school and spent his first 2 years in the army fixing planes instead of flying them became one of America's greatest fighter pilots. And it starts not in the cockpit, but in a maintenance hangar with grease under his fingernails. Charles Elwood Yeager was born February 13, 1923, in Myra, West Virginia, a town so small it barely appeared on maps. His family was poor. His father worked in the coal mines and later drilled natural gas wells. Chuck grew up hunting in the mountains, learning to shoot squirrels with a rifle because missed shots meant his family went without meat. That skill, hitting small moving targets at long range, would prove more valuable than any formal education. When America entered World War II, Yeager enlisted in the Army Air Forces at age 18. He wanted to be a pilot, but the Army had requirements. Pilots needed at least 2 years of college education. Yeager had a high school diploma and nothing else. The Army assigned him to aircraft maintenance. He became a mechanic, learning to repair P-39 Airacobras at an airbase in California. Yeager hated it. Not the work itself. He was good with his hands and understood machines intuitively. But watching pilots take off every day while he stayed on the ground changing spark plugs felt like punishment. He joined the Army Air Forces to fly, not fix planes that other men got to fly. Then in July 1942, the Army changed its policy. They needed pilots desperately, losing them faster than they could train replacements. The college requirement was waived. Any enlisted man could apply for flight training if they passed the qualifying exams. Yeager took the test and scored high enough to be accepted immediately. He entered flight training in November 1942 at age 19. The instructors quickly discovered that while Yeager lacked formal education, he had something more valuable, natural ability. He could feel what the aircraft was doing through the controls. Where other students had to think consciously about every input, Yeager flew instinctively. His experience as a mechanic helped too. He understood how the systems worked, which meant he knew the limits of what the aircraft could handle. Yeager earned his wings in March 1943 and was assigned to fly P-39 Airacobras, the same aircraft he'd been fixing months earlier. But the P-39 wasn't sent to combat theaters anymore. It was outclassed by German and Japanese fighters. Yeager spent months training in the United States, frustrated again, wanting to get into the fight but stuck stateside flying training missions. Finally, in November 1943, he shipped out to England, assigned to the 363rd Fighter Squadron of the 357th Fighter Group, flying P-51 Mustangs. The Mustang was everything the P-39 wasn't. Fast, maneuverable, long range, and armed with 650 caliber machine guns that could tear apart any aircraft the Germans had. Yeager fell in love with the Mustang immediately. It responded to his touch like it was reading his mind. His first combat mission came in February 1944, escorting B-17 bombers deep into Germany. The mission was uneventful. No German fighters appeared. Yeager returned to base disappointed, eager for his first real dogfight. His chance came on March 4, 1944. Yeager's squadron encountered German fighters over France. In the swirling dogfight that followed, Yeager got on the tail of a Messerschmitt Bf 109 and fired. His bullets walked across the German fighter's wing and fuselage. The 109 rolled over and fell out of the sky, trailing smoke. Yeager's first kill. The elation lasted exactly 1 day. On March 5th, Yeager's Mustang was hit by ground fire over France. The engine seized. He crash-landed in occupied territory and barely escaped the wreckage before German soldiers arrived. For the next 3 months, Yeager evaded capture, helped by French resistance fighters who smuggled him through enemy territory. He crossed the Pyrenees Mountains on foot into Spain, nearly dying from exposure and exhaustion. The experience would have broken most men. For Yeager, it became just another obstacle to overcome. The Army Air Forces had a policy that pilots who'd been shot down over enemy territory and evaded capture couldn't return to combat. The reasoning was that if they were shot down again and captured, they might reveal resistance networks and safe houses under interrogation. Yeager fought the policy. He argued, threatened, and finally went directly to General Dwight Eisenhower, demanding to be allowed back in the cockpit. Eisenhower made an exception. Yeager returned to combat in August 1944. By October 1944, Yeager had been flying combat missions for 8 months. He'd shot down 2 German aircraft and damaged several others. He was a competent pilot, but not exceptional. Nothing about his record suggested he was destined for greatness. He followed orders, completed his missions, and went home. Then came October 12th. The mission brief was routine. Escort B-17 bombers to Bremen, protect them from German fighters, bring everyone home. Yeager's squadron took off before dawn and formed up with the bomber stream over the English Channel. The flight into Germany was quiet. Too quiet. German fighters that usually swarmed bomber formations were absent. The B-17s dropped their bombs on Bremen and turned for home. Still, no enemy contact. Then, over the radio, came frantic calls from bombers at the rear of the formation. German fighters attacking, multiple bandits. Yeager's squadron leader ordered them toward the fight. Yeager pushed his throttle forward and climbed. Below him, he could see the chaos. German Focke-Wulf 190s and Messerschmitt 109s were tearing into the bombers. One B-17 was already falling, trailing fire. Another had its tail section shot off and was tumbling out of control. Yeager picked a target, a Focke-Wulf 190, making a firing pass on a damaged bomber. He dove after it, closing the range to 300 yards before opening fire. His bullets stitched across the 190's fuselage. The German fighter snap-rolled left and dove away, trailing smoke. Yeager followed, firing in short bursts. The 190 exploded, pieces of the aircraft tumbling through the sky. Yeager pulled up hard and immediately saw another target. A Messerschmitt 109 was climbing away from the bombers, trying to gain altitude for another attack. Yeager turned after it, but the 109 pilot saw him coming and broke hard right. A turning fight began, both aircraft pulling maximum Gs in tight circles, each trying to get inside the other's turn and line up a shot. Yeager's Mustang could turn tighter than the 109, and he knew it. He pulled harder, feeling the aircraft shudder on the edge of a stall, the G-forces pushing him down into his seat. His vision narrowed to a tunnel, blood draining from his head. But he kept turning, kept tightening the circle. The 109 appeared in his gun sight. Yeager fired. The bullets hit the 109's engine. Smoke poured from the cowling. The German pilot rolled inverted and bailed out. 2 kills. Yeager checked his fuel and ammunition. Still good. He climbed back toward the bombers and saw the crippled B-17 he'd noticed earlier, the one trailing smoke with one engine out. It was falling behind the formation, losing altitude, and diving toward it were 5 Messerschmitt 109s, fresh fighters that had just arrived on the scene. Yeager was alone. His wingman had run low on fuel and was heading home. The rest of his squadron was scattered across the sky, each pilot engaged with different targets. If Yeager called for help, by the time anyone arrived, that B-17 would be shot down and its crew would be dead. He didn't call for help. He dove after the 5 German fighters. The lead 109 pilot never saw him coming. Yeager closed to point-blank range and fired a long burst. The 109's canopy shattered. The fighter rolled right and fell away. 3 kills. The other 4 German pilots saw Yeager now and broke formation. 2 turned toward him, trying to sandwich him between them in a crossfire. The other 2 continued after the B-17, determined to finish their attack. Yeager ignored the 2 turning toward him and went after the 2 chasing the bomber. He caught the first one in a climbing turn. The 109 pilot was good, using every evasive maneuver in the book. Yeager matched him move for move, staying glued to his tail. When the German reversed his turn, Yeager was waiting. He fired a 2-second burst. The 109's left wing folded upward and tore off. The fighter spun into the ground. 4 kills. The 5th 109 was now directly behind the B-17, lining up for a killing shot. Yeager pulled his nose up and fired from below, an impossible deflection shot at a target 600 yards away. He didn't expect to hit anything. He just wanted to distract the German pilot, make him break off the attack. His bullets found the target anyway. The 109's tail section exploded. The fighter pitched up violently and stalled. 5 kills. The entire engagement had lasted 12 minutes. Yeager had shot down 5 German fighters, saved a B-17 crew, and survived attacks from multiple enemy aircraft without taking a single hit. He was out of ammunition now. He formed up on the damaged B-17 and escorted it back to England, protecting it from any other fighters that might appear. When Yeager landed at his base, the ground crew counted his ammunition. All 6 guns empty. He'd fired every round. His fellow pilots crowded around, wanting to know what happened. News had already spread that someone had gotten 5 kills in one mission. Yeager downplayed it. "Just got lucky," he said. "Right place, right time." The gun camera footage told a different story. Yeager's kills were clean, precise, professional. Every shot was controlled. Every maneuver was executed perfectly. This wasn't luck. This was a master fighter pilot operating at the peak of his ability. The Army Air Forces confirmed all 5 kills. Chuck Yeager became an ace in a day, one of the rarest achievements in aerial combat. The B-17 crew he'd saved wrote him a letter after the war. They'd watched the whole fight from their battered bomber, 7 men who'd thought they were dead, until one Mustang pilot appeared and took on 5 German fighters alone. They wanted Yeager to know that they'd all made it home, that they'd lived through the war, that they'd had children and grandchildren. All because a mechanic from West Virginia had refused to let them die. Yeager continued flying combat missions until January 1945, when he'd completed enough missions to rotate home. His final score was 11.5 confirmed kills, making him one of the top aces in the European theatre. But it was that single mission on October 12, 1944, that defined his reputation. 5 kills in one day. Ace in a day. After the war, Yeager became a test pilot. On October 14, 1947, he became the first person to break the sound barrier, flying the experimental X-1 rocket plane faster than Mach 1. The mission made him world famous, but Yeager always said breaking the sound barrier was easier than shooting down 5 German fighters in 12 minutes. The X-1 didn't shoot back. Yeager retired from the Air Force in 1975 as a brigadier general. He lived until December 7, 2020, dying at age 97. His entire life was defined by refusing to accept limitations. Too poor for college? He'd become a pilot anyway. Shot down over enemy territory? He'd evade capture and get back in the cockpit. Outnumbered 5-1? He'd attack anyway and win. The mechanics who'd worked alongside Yeager in those California maintenance hangars in 1942 watched his career with amazement. They'd changed spark plugs next to this quiet kid from West Virginia who barely spoke and seemed destined to spend the war fixing planes. Instead, He became one of the greatest fighter pilots in history. Because Yeager understood something fundamental that no amount of formal education could teach. Flying wasn't about knowledge, it was about feel, instinct, and the willingness to push yourself and your aircraft to the absolute limit when everything depended on it. When those 5 German fighters dove toward that crippled B-17, Yeager could have called for help. He could have decided the odds were too long and let someone else handle it. He could have followed proper procedure and radioed for a coordinated attack. But by the time help arrived, 7 men would have been dead. So Yeager trusted himself, trusted his aircraft, and attacked alone against impossible odds. That decision, that willingness to take on 5 enemy fighters solo, saved 7 lives and earned him a place in aviation history. The mechanic from West Virginia, who the Army almost didn't let fly, proved that natural talent and determination matter more than formal credentials. Yeager's 5 kills in one day stand as proof that sometimes the best pilot in the sky is the one who refused to accept that he wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. The next time someone tells you that you're not qualified, that you lack the proper credentials, that you should stay in your lane and let the experts handle it, remember Chuck Yeager rolling his Mustang inverted and diving after 5 German fighters. He was just a mechanic, until he wasn't.